call to order the March 10th meeting of the Smithfield Planning Commission. If you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a little bit of change in our agenda this evening. I need a motion to go into closed session, more specifically for consultation with legal counsel pursuant to 2.2-37788 of the Code of Virginia. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a question. What does that section of the Code of Virginia say? What are the words that go with the numbers?
Yes, sir.
It's consultation with legal counsel for specific matters. I can give you verbatim, but
Is it that general?
yes.
Okay. In our town council meetings, we state the reason so that any citizens, as well as the board and commissioners in this case, know what those numbers mean.
I can read word for word. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel.
Thank you.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are going to adjourn to the next room, and we will be back.
consultation with legal counsel occurred during closed session pursuant to 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Upcoming activities, meetings, next Tuesday, the 17th, 6:30, Board of Historic Architectural Review. Also on the 17th, we have, the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting has been canceled. Don't want to hang around for that. Monday, March 23rd, 3 p.m. Town Council Committee meetings. Tuesday, April 7th, Town Council meeting. Tuesday, April 14th at 6:30 is our next Planning Commission meeting. And on Wednesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m., we have a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and Town Council. Next item on the agenda is public comments. The public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any required responses from the town will be provided in writing following the meeting. Do we have anyone signed up? Hearing none, we will move along. Planning Commission comments. I was hoping, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to catch you by surprise, but I was hoping maybe Councilman Cutler could speak to a recent decision to purchase some real estate and any plans for that.
Sure. And I had some other comments as well, so I was going to offer those for the end, but if we're going to chit-chat, then I'll go ahead and do that. So the purchase of the property formerly known as the Grange, we could call it something else now, Pierceville Farm or Smithfield property. But I will say, as far as future plans, it may help if I give a little background. So this, you're more familiar than I am with the iterations that this went through since the last 6 months. Prior to the last 6 months. So we revived, and I worked with them to revive what was really like the original submission of the project, and just to consider it as a conceptual idea. And so there was some discussions about that took place over time, various types of conceptual ideas that were discussed, and ultimately there was a cost-sharing aspect, I would say, that really just didn't make it feasible on both sides. So ultimately that morphed into this opportunity to, and that was seen by, I think, both sides, both parties. The message was that, if we're not going to see eye to eye, then maybe the town should be in control. So so we do have that now. We have purchased the property. I will say that there are no immediate plans for it. I would say that's in the hands of the citizens of the town. Of course, there are a litany of ideas, many ideas. We currently have town staff that is scattered, not scattered, but they're not co-located completely. We don't have permanent chambers. We're constantly shifting this space around. We are grown since our current town center combination fire department was built, so there could be a need for that. There's a lot of outside the box thinking. It could remain as a green space. There's been, I think, over 100 comments on the press release, and there were several people that said, okay, leave it alone. Let it remain a green space, and it could stay that way for 10 years until some future council has a need for it. But I would say this allows us really a few opportunities. One is a more measured pace that we're in charge of. So if if we're not doing the building, then we're kind of at someone else's mercy. It also gives us more opportunities for commercial growth. So I did get a contact and saw a few comments about put a Aldi grocery store in there, right? Well, there's very little we could do previously with a corporation to say, hey, we would love you to come to our town, and that's about all we could do. We could give a very small tax, benefit, but it's very small. But if we own property that's right for that commercial use, now, I'm not saying that that's the plan, but all I'm saying is, if you think about and consider the options, they are only limited by your imagination. So it could be a park, it could be a grass field. I would say in the immediate, near future, it would probably be wise to resurface and make the remaining structure there look presentable for the town, get it back to a condition where it is healthy and safe and useful for parades, staging, parking for our events, things such as the Main Street Baptist Church, the schoolhouse, museum, so that it can continue to be a benefit to the community immediately. So I think that, may be, but I expect that we will seek a healthy amount of public input and do some type of master planning effort to address public needs.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And then I would like to take a minute to address, hopefully put a bow on this Mallory Scott Farm discussion. And I want to say, last week listening to your thoughts on it, Dr. Pope, I did consider for a minute that maybe it wasn't really an appropriate discussion for, SUP use. But then as I kind of dug into it and was led along by some concerned citizens that shared a lot of data and insight from that period of time that I'm just not privy to. And I wasn't sitting here at that time, so I respect that, and I respect your decision making. But I wasn't expecting that closed session, so I'm a little discombobulated on my notes. But I went back in the minutes, and there was a little bit of focus on some numbers, like 1,451 homes full build out, 1,106 homes that they could have built, but they really couldn't. That was only right if we changed the zoning and if we changed it beyond the future land use map. And this is really kind of the crux of it. This is the same application form for an SUP, just this block is checked instead of this block. So it's not really all that different. And the future land use map is something that is reviewed and developed over time and with much consideration. So I'm not sure, allowing a developer to convince us to change our future land use map. So what that did, those high numbers, they weren't a possibility. 377, and I could be wrong. This is not my original research, my own research, but it looks like 377 was what was allowed by right as it was zoned at the time, which was predominantly community conservation and NR. So, and then there was a proposed change, but even with that allowance to NR zoning, that would have only went up to 523, but by changing all, five of the six zones or parcels, it allowed even greater expanded growth. And 812 was the final number, but from the by right, so from what the land use was zoned as, that was a 115% increase over the by right. From just the NR zoning change, would have taken them to 523, which is about a 40% increase. So by allowing a future land use map change and then adopting that zoning, if I'm gathering the history correctly, we allowed them 115% increase in number of dwellings, or from changing the future land use map, a 40% increase in dwellings. Now, so I look at that and I question, what benefit does that bring to the town? And I rode through the site or by the site and thought about it. And I'm really struggling to see it. So you stated a few things, but those all sounded like enhancements that were necessary because of the 812 homes that they were bringing. I don't think without those 812 homes, we would have needed a roundabout or a turn lane off of Battery Park, or improvements to our water or sewer system, or putting our school systems in the negative on capacity in addition to all the other approved developments. And the minimum house price is $509,000. I would say the majority currently listed are in the $600,000 range. And I think the maximum I saw listed on Zillow is about $750,000. So school teachers, those kinds of things. I think what we really are seeing here is the reality is that affordable housing without government intervention in Smithfield probably is not possible, because I think on the original FIA, maybe it said they were going to start at 300,000, and we're almost, the majority of homes are double that price, 100% increase over that now. So, what did we get for the town? So, we got rooftops. So for the growth-minded folks, local business owners, and folks who maybe want to bring in some city conveniences, bringing more rooftops here will help with that. But otherwise, I think if you look at the data from most recently the county's comprehensive plan, in the few years back, the town's comprehensive plan surveys, the Tischler-Bice survey for the growth study that they did, the non-scientific survey that the Smithfield Times did, and all of the social media comments that are out there, it's time and again the citizens can speak. But here we are, we have thousands, not just these 812, but thousands of homes coming in, and I think that we probably just agree to disagree, and I think that's fine and healthy, but what I see as a result of this is we have thousands of homes coming in, and here we are talking about loosening the floodgates and making them even wider open on our traffic and our schools and our citizens, when they've spoken that they don't want that. And come to think of, a school could go at that site as well. That comes to mind. But I think in reference to retrospectively looking at this and looking at the growth that's coming and looking at what the county has approved over the last year or so, and what's before them, I don't think it's time to make everything waiverable and SUP-able so that our growth can continue in the manner it is currently, or in a more uncontrolled and unmanaged state. And rather, before the state takes it away from us, it's time for us to stick to our zoning standards and enforce them before we have no other choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other planning commissioner comments?
Yes, of course.
Dr. Pope?
I disagree on your 377 because I've got the numbers and I've confirmed it with his site plan developer, Land Planning Solutions, that the 594 homes that they could build by right is an accurate number. He could have built 600 homes on his property by right at that time. Do you remember those numbers? Well, I guess he can't comment because he's in there, but he could have built 594 homes. Had we changed the zoning to what he asked for, he could have come in at 1,451 homes had he chosen to go to maximum density. He chose not to and came in at 1,100 if we had changed the zoning, and we settled at 812. But he had by right, because he had bought some property in 2005-ish, rezoned that property to neighborhood residential, which allowed him the increase in density. And in response to that, he had already made upgrades to the water system by putting in a water tower, and made upgrades for that side of town in anticipation for the development. And so he had already made contributions to the infrastructure. I don't know when it went in, 2006, 7, whatever the year was it got built, but he had already paid for that. So he could have built 594. We settled on 812. 200 house difference is still a wash to me based on a 500-acre development. So you can spend the numbers how you want to. On this, if you look back at the document I've given you about my numbers on schools that I'm asking for, what comes out of all the different developments, county and town-wise. Since his development was approved in 2021, as a rough count by my guide from the Smithfield Times, all that data that's correct, there's 1,900 homes that have been approved since his 812 since 2021 in the county and town together. So additional 2,000 homes came in after him, not before him. So the development that everybody's concerned about, 812 is a lot of homes, I give it to you. But a lot of the development that was approved has been since his development was approved, and that's on the county side, not on the town side.
But even when the developer's own FIA, it said that Smithfield Middle School was going to be in a negative by, I believe it was 26%, and then after the school board revised and realized that they were miscounting because of the displacement of classrooms in the middle school. That it's I suspect an even greater number for Smithfield High. I don't know. However, the impact remains, and everything we do above our zoning impacts us more.
Well, go back to those meeting minutes. I had asked for many, many times in 2019, 2020 about school numbers and the impact of every development that has been approved in the county and the town, and those numbers did not exist. The wording we got back from the school board or from the superintendent stated, based on the development, this development can handle the number of students generated by this development. It was not collective as all developments in the past. It was always worded as, we can handle the number of students at this day based on this development at this time. But that we all know that the student development is cumulative, but we never had cumulative data. The data would never come before us. My understanding is the county has that data, but will not release that data based on their study that whoever that is does the studies for the county has that data, but it's not been released to my knowledge.
So if I recall correctly, that financial impact analysis did provide cumulative data. But even if it didn't, if we were putting a school from one development in the whole 26% and we were not accounting for cumulative data, even with a minimal number of 1,000 or so homes that were perhaps approved before that, it was still is a deficit.
But at that time, the schools were able to accept his development and everything else previously, and we couldn't get the data to know what his true impact on the schools were because we didn't have the cumulative data. Since then, an additional approximately, I can't do the math that fast, but just counting numbers roughly by 50s, around 1,900 homes were approved after that.
But that's contrary to the financial impact analysis that the developer submitted when they submitted the Mallory Scott development.
Okay.
I got another question.
No.
What's going to happen with the promontory now that the Wawa's pulled out? What's going on with the traffic circle? What their contribution? Are they going to still be able to turn left out of their subdivision? How does this impact what's going on with what's been approved with the promontory?
So as far as I understand, it is a VDOT partially funded project that's still moving forward with the roundabout. The proffers for all of those parties that were affected, they're paying their share based upon that per acre dollar amount that was determined, and then the promontory had proffered their amount for the
One Wawa
roundabout.
proffered to give a certain amount as well?
Is my understanding that Wawa was not part of that conversation.
Okay. I thought they had to offer a certain amount of percentage of money as well.
I believe that was part of the problem, was getting Wawa to the table.
The project had been fully funded without the Wawa.
The roundabout and the intersection,
Yes.
that is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other planning commission comments? All right, next up, item number 4, we have a public hearing, rezoning comp plan amendment and future land use map amendment. Ms. Claire, you have a staff report.
Yes, thank you. The applicant is requesting the rezoning of .251 acres of the property from conditional suburban residential to light industrial. This is to accomplish a boundary line adjustment with the neighboring parcel that is proposing an addition. The applicant is requesting to alter the comprehensive plan through the future land use map, changing residential mixed use to flex industrial. According to the zoning ordinance, Planning Commission has until June 18th to decide on this application before it is automatically forwarded to Town Council with a recommendation for approval. For the Planning Commission action, we do need the Planning Commission to make a recommendation on the rezoning from conditional suburban residential to I-1. We also need a recommendation on the comprehensive plan amendment, future land use map amendment from residential mixed use to flex industrial. Thank you.
All right, I will open public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up to speak? Anybody here? Mr. Napolitano, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is John Napolitano. My address 1492 South Independence Boulevard, Virginia Beach. Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this is a pretty simple request that we're looking for. We are part of our development would be to bring our water line down the north side of Battery Park Road. In front of Mr. Smith's property, the town does not have any right-of-way that we could utilize. So we would have had to bore under Battery Park, go to the other side, go down the right-of-way, bore back under. Anytime you bore under a road, you can run into problems, particularly in old roads like this where things are not where they say that they're supposed to be. So I went to Mr. Smith and I said, you know, let's see if we can help each other out. And he agreed that he would dedicate the right-of-way in front of his property to the town so that we can run the water line straight through there. And in exchange, we're going to give him some open space that was part of our property that we couldn't do anything with, that he could use, and then he could expand his commercial business at that point. So, you know, everybody in this situation, in my opinion, wins. We win because we don't have to risk going under the road. The town wins, they get the right of way. Mr. Smith wins because he picks up some additional land. And traffic wins because, God forbid, we did hit something under that road, we'd have a big problem on our hands. So that's the whole purpose behind this. Has nothing to do with the houses, has nothing to do with any of that. But if I may make one comment, please. I've heard the thing before about the price of houses, and Mr. Cutler, just so you know, because you weren't here at the time, number one, since that rezoning, the cost of housing has gone up over 60%. But the other thing is, we had two other products that we were trying to introduce that would have been our lower priced product. And through the course of all the public hearings, they made us get rid of those. And that's one of the reasons why the price, I'd love to, we had a community design that somebody could have moved in straight out of, you know, just getting their new job and lived there through the whole thing. And I won't elaborate on it, but that was really the big problem with that. Two of our products had to get eliminated, and they were our lower cost product. So anyway, back to this. I'm here for any questions if you have any. I think Mr. Smith is here if he'd like to say something, and I appreciate you all's positive
I
vote
need to
for it.
officially close the public hearing, and then we will entertain any questions for the applicant.
I don't have any
Clerk, you look like
questions
you
for
wanna
him, but I think this is definitely a win-win for both parties involved, and I see this as a very positive aspect of exactly what I've been talking about as I've gone through my expansion of how can we keep this down and easy for him without requiring a lot of hoopla. I think this is perfect application to say this is very appropriate rezoning and moving forward for this.
Other comments or questions for the applicant? Okay.
I only have one,
Mr. Brown.
Madam Chairman. Would this be two different votes? One for the rezoning of the CSR and the second one for the change to the
Comp
Future-
and the map.
future
yeah.
land? Okay.
Yes. So I need a motion and a second for the rezoning, and this is a recommendation to council, correct?
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
So the future land use map amendment, residential mixed use to flex industrial, is that specifically that .251 acres oddly shaped there?
That is correct.
Okay. And that is because that is, I mean, it doesn't match the current use that we're changing it to, light industrial.
Currently residential.
Well, proposed zoning is light industrial. Flex, future land use map is going to say flex industrial. Why would it say something different if there's no future change planned for that? If we're changing it for the sake of the applicants or the future recipients' property concerns, why wouldn't it just match that?
The residential mixed use, that is not what's currently being accomplished at the property. The property that this piece of property would essentially become is already zoned light industrial and is already operating under that flex industrial. So this would take that small portion and change that map to that light gray flex industrial designation.
Right. I mean, my question is a little more maybe mundane than that. I understand all that part. Light industrial is our zoning category. Flex industrial is our future land use map category. Why are they different?
That was how the comprehensive plan update ended up. Ideally, we would like to align the future land use map categories more in line with the zoning designation to try to avoid future confusion.
So adjacent, if you had these on a scale, because they're not the same, this is the appropriate match? There's not a different future land use map category that is a better fit, that's the appropriate fit?
The primary use is commercial.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Do I have a motion for the rezoning?
I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to town council to approve rezoning from commercial suburban what'd you call it?
Conditional.
Conditional suburban residential to light industrial zoning.
Is there a second?
A second.
Call for the question, please, Ms. Claire.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilligas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then we need a motion to change the comp plan and future land use map. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to town council to make changes to the comprehensive plan amendment and flume amendments from residential mixed use to flex industrial.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the question, please.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilligas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Go forth and do good things. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Item number 5 is entrance corridor overlay review. Smithfield Retail Management LLC, care of Stephen Barrett is the applicant. Ms. Clary, do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking entrance corridor overlay approval for the exterior elevations and dumpster enclosure. The multi-tenant building will feature a combination of brick veneer and EIFS metal trim, aluminum frame awnings. The upper portion will be in a china white color for the EIFS and a new gray. The lower portions will be that brick veneer in Buckingham Tudor color. All metal trim will be in a pack-clad stone white color. Aluminum awnings and frames will be black in color with the fabric to be done by the landlord. The single-tenant building will also have that brick veneer with fiber cement siding and metal trims. Lower portion, again, Buckingham Tudor color. Upper portion will be in a color of night gray. All metal trim will be black gray in color. The building will feature a metal railing in the color snowbound under the canopy at the front of the building. The dumpster will feature the brick veneer on a concrete brick wall to enclose 2 8-yard containers. The enclosure will feature a double gate that will have a metal frame and unfinished cedar boards. The screening will match the building with the brick veneer in that Buckingham Tudor color. The Planning Commission action is a decision on ECO colors, materials, and elevations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, my name is Jordan Chapman. I'm with Smithfield Retail Management. Here to answer any questions that you may have. I understand our project was in front of the commission a couple months back regarding the site plan, but happy to get into any questions you may have on the architectural elements.
Questions for the applicant?
I think the obvious question is it was not before us for a site plan, correct?
It was before you for the SUPs, the 3 special use
But
permits.
not for site plan review.
Understood.
That's sort of been a bone of contention tonight.
First of all, for me, the buildings seem to be fairly modern. And I've said thousands of times in these meetings that I think buildings in our location should be of some type of colonial architecture and have colonial elements. And these buildings, other than brick, do not really have a lot of colonial architectural details. So with that being said, it's a very modern type of building for our space of where it is.
Other comments or questions?
Well, I would like to ask,
Mr. Brown.
Chairman, Roman, if Dr. Pope could be more specific, what would you recommend?
Well, using our Wendy's as an example, they took a existing rectangular building, if you will, and put gables on it, did at least some sort of some type of laid-back pitched roof, well, I don't know the slope on it, 12 pitch roofs to give it at least a colonial architecture, even if it had a flat roof. They used exterior lights to sort of lanterns and things of that nature to address it, to make it fit more within the colonial community and things of that nature. But again, those are personal opinions of mine. But you know, the Starbucks building is, to me, as labeled here, as a very modern looking building that I don't know, in my opinion, if it fits exactly within the details of what I would like to see there. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of different standalone signs and extraneous objects not being hidden behind buildings and being able to be shielded. So I don't know, I always have concerns about the aesthetics of the way things look from all different sides of the property as you approach.
Well, when we talk about the colors of what's recommended in the ECO, the roof, I mean, earth tones is what I think some of the things, or one of the things possibly that Dr. Pope was referring to. How did you come up with the black roof as far as some other color?
Specific to the Starbucks, or the proposed Starbucks building or freestanding building?
Yes.
I know that the fiber cement siding's a common element they use in their prototypes. I know that when we were going back and forth with the administrative review with the site plan, I believe we received some comments as it pertained to the prototypical elevations we submitted, which led us to the back and forth collaboration to the black fiber cement siding. So I think it was really just in the collaboration with our architect and just the review of the plans at the administration level.
Has it ever been any of these buildings that have been designed and engineered in any other localities that perhaps meet the description that is on the floor tonight for us, having that more of a historical look or appeal?
I would have to do some research on what the existing ones are. Obviously, these brands that we're working with are all national brands with multiple locations. So I could take a look at what they do have. I know that what you see here today are what?
Pretty generic. I mean, pretty span, which are...
I think generic would, in my mind, would be more of their prototypical look. And I think, Tammy, the first pass of what we put in front of you with more ethos and, some of the, I guess it would be like the lighter tan or earthy tone, tones are really what you'd see in a lot of the communities. With what we're attempting to accomplish with what's in your packets are something that's very specific to the overlay and, the community standards.
Chairwoman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I think that the brick is certainly welcome, but just when I look at it, and I was stationed in San Diego for about 10 years, and it just looks kind of West Coast a little bit, West Coast modern. Whereas the building that Dr. Pope described is more, if you venture through our entire entrance corridor from various directions, it's not akin to the architecture that we have there.
Understood. I'm happy to take a look at some of the neighboring buildings as well.
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And changing the color of the tiles on the Starbucks, would that be?
I guess, is there some direction on the color that you guys are looking for here with the fiber cement? again, I think what we were trying to do with what we were presenting was to vet this out with staff and try to have a collaborative effort of something that we felt met the requirements of the entrance corridor overlay, and also could meet the requirements of the tenants.
Yes. Which reference earth tone colors. I don't think black is one of those. But the other thing, one other thing, and it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything about your application, but just for the record, just to be, just clarity in the record. I was looking at this drawing, these drawings that you presented, and the label that you give, the elevations, I'm a little confused about them. In particular, Starbucks. Looking at it, the front of the building is labeled east elevation. Correct? That's the front of the building? You agree with that? That's page 11.
I believe what they deemed their front would actually be what's labeled as north elevation, based on how we show the. Actually, no, you're correct. The east elevation is the front of the building where we show the ADA spots on the site plan.
Okay. The problem I have with that is the front of the multi-unit building is labeled west elevation. That's on page 12.
Do you have a copy of the site plan as well?
There is a tab here, yes. Well, we do. I mean, we're looking at it. On the second tab, as a site plan, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So what's labeled as the east elevation, there's a parking field, adjacent to the building. As the multi-tenant sits, the longer building fronts the Ben's Church. So I think it is correct with what you're seeing on the elevation, is that the front of the Starbucks is not facing the right-of-way.
Right.
The double door.
Right. It's not facing Ben's Church. It's facing toward the 3-unit building. But if you look at the 3-unit building, the front of it is facing Ben's Church.
Correct.
So why is it labeled west and it's not facing?
Yeah, it
It's
appears
not facing the Starbucks front.
Yeah, it appears that it's mislabeled.
Oh, okay. I just want to be certain,
Yeah.
just for the record, that we actually.
Because I see what you're saying. The west elevation on the multi-tenant building would be what's fronting Ben's Church, where the west elevation on the Starbucks building is actually north. That would be the drive-through pickup lane.
Yes.
Correct.
That's the way I saw it.
Yeah. Yep.
So the labeling is incorrect.
You are correct, yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just confused about that. That's all. It
I
doesn't
apologize.
change it, as far as your application, but just for the town's record, some clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen? What's your pleasure?
I guess the question is, are we going to do some research on more colonial styles? Or are we expecting to approve what we're looking at?
I guess, what are our options for action here tonight, Tammy? Because I believe, what we had put in front of here, I believe the materials that we've selected and the colors do meet the intent of the entrance corridor overlay, but it appears that the black fiber cement siding is not favorable, as well as more colonial elements, is what I'm hearing.
So the actions that the Planning Commission have, they can table the application, they can deny the application, they can approve the application, they can approve the application with conditions.
Ms. Clary, are we on a timeline for this?
do not believe there's a timeline for entrance corridor overlay review.
Okay. Well, I mean, it seems like it would make sense if the builder is going to make some changes, if that's what we want, then there's only one option.
Is that a motion? Come on, earn your money tonight. Come on.
I'll make a motion that we table this item until we see the other options.
Is there a second?
A second.
I'm s- Well,
Do we need to define what those options
yes,
are?
exactly.
Yeah.
What type of options will we be looking for? Is it just color changes? It's gonna be some ornamental
I
changes?
think we clearly heard a more historical appearance, not so contemporary. It's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do you have enough information to go back, or what are you looking for from us?
I guess it's not necessarily clear to me with the, I mean, one of the comments was, I guess essentially what I heard was you don't like the black fiber cement siding, and then a more colonial look and look up and down the corridor. That's what I heard. So I guess the guidance I have is to go drive the corridor and compare architectural elements to what I have here proposed, and review it in accordance with the entrance corridor overlay.
Well, let me give you my opinion for what it's worth. The Chipotle building and the Jersey Mike's building, that's a standard 3-tenant building. It's probably not going to get much better than what you've got with that. I mean, it's not much different than the building. It's beside Dollar General and the DMV. In that sense, the brick, the earth tones, at least if I'm looking at this correctly, the cornice work that's up at the top matches what's behind you in the hotel. The colors are your China white and things of that nature, general shale. That's probably an appropriate building for what it is, okay, on that. So I don't think there's a lot of improvement on, I'll call it the Chipotle building. That's my opinion on that, because that looks fairly similar to the types of buildings that we've approved in the past within the town. However, the Starbucks building, as it's labeled, is a very modern building that does not exist within the town, to my knowledge, unless somebody wishes to correct me. But it does not need to look like the Chipotle building, in my opinion. But if it's a standalone building, I don't know the dimensions of that building, as it's not on the site plan. And I don't see measurements on here, but a more traditional type of building would be more appropriate in the color tones that match, not the exact color tones of the Chipotle building, but roof lines, gabled roofs, windows that have divider lights in them as opposed to commercial windows and things of that nature to look at more colonial. Your flat front on your outdoor dining could be a gabled roof, things of that nature to make it a more colonial looking building. That's just my opinion on this. And this is just a modern rectangular looking building. Wendy's at least is maybe, what's the right word, is it a gambled roof? What's it called when the roof line just comes down? What's it called? It's a special one. You got a flat building, but it looks like a roof on the front side. What's it called?
Oh, like a false front roof?
Yeah, maybe. What is it?
Lean-to?
That's not the right term I recognize,
hill?
but at least Wendy's has provided us with some degree of slope, even though it may go into a flat roof on the top, but at least there's an attempt to not square it off. And so, you know, to me, it needs to have more colonial architecture as far as the roof lines and things like that, the windows and things of that nature, if it's going to be its own standalone building. That's approximately 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, whatever that building works out to.
May I ask a question? Is it possible for us to receive like seek approval for the Chipotle building and go back to the drawing board on the Starbucks building?
Can I say something?
Mr. Craig?
Madam Chairwoman, what I was gonna tag on to what Dr. Pope said and say that while I somewhat agree that the Chipotle building is closer, it does still look kind of strip mallish to me, that you could take the notes that you do with the Starbucks building, say color-wise, fixtures, and these accent things that make it look colonial, and maybe apply that to the other building, and that so that because if you completely change the Starbucks building into a colonial, and then still have this modern, kind of looks like the CVS building.
Then it's not going to go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some type of architectural merging of what's already there to across that, and it's not just Smithfield that has great architecture. There's other communities. Williamsburg would be a great one to go through for examples of how businesses have really adapted to the requests of the community.
Yeah, I was actually there earlier today. So, I guess as far as the multi-tenant building, I do feel like I've put my best foot forward on that building. While I do agree with Dr. Pope that I think that I could do a better job on the Starbucks building, I think we're going to have challenges as it comes to feasibility, sign-offs, with the multi-tenant building. I think there's just more complications than what you'd have with, the 20, I think it's roughly 2,500 square foot Starbucks and freestanding. I think we could better accomplish what you're looking for on that building. But I do feel like a lot of thought and time has gone into the multi-tenant building. So I didn't know if it would be possible to seek approval for the multi-tenant building as we work through the details and redesign, if you will, of the Starbucks. And
The other thing that comes to my mind is based on the layout of your buildings and everything, the dumpster also looks very plain and nothing special, and that dumpster is going to be in a line of sight for our movement around our town. Is there any way to dress up the appearance of the dumpster building and ways to make it look less like a dumpster enclosure in something, since this is going to be in a major sight line of our traffic patterns and things of that nature? Is it a way to make it a little bit more attractive since of its location?
Which dumpster are you referencing?
Particularly, I'm going to say the one probably for the multi-tenant building. Let me look at.
The one that's,
that's going to be the
on the
multi-tenant.
rear yard?
Yeah.
I think.
I would even say the Starbucks one, because you got your drive-through line that's wrapping around your dumpster line and everything else. And so, dumpsters tend to get dirty, nasty, boxes end up everywhere, grease gets spilt everywhere, you have stains everywhere. And it's, these are the things that make things not attractive. So when they're this close in and then the major sight lines, it would be nice to have them very cleaned up and very matchy to the building and not just a utilitarian space. Unless there's better locations to do something with it, I don't know, but there's ways to maybe dress it up to hide it better.
I think as far as locations, we're pretty restricted as far as these parcels go. We have, especially when it comes to the multi-tenant building, given that, we're fronting, our rear yard is the private drive, and then, we essentially have 3 frontages there. So there's not necessarily a great spot, if you will, to hide it or, relocate it. And I would say we're pretty confined on the Starbucks as well. I could take a look at our landscaping plan and see if there's a way to maybe dress up, some plantings around it. But I think it's important to understand that these businesses, I think they see the same point that you're making, right? It's like you can't have a dumpster that's uneasy on the eye as they're trying to attract customers into their business. I can speak for the multi-tenant building, that would be a responsibility of the landlord. So I'd have full control of, how that looks as far as the waste hauling and, whether it's recycling or whatever the bins are inside of there, to make sure that it's looking presentable and enforcing that with the tenants. In the Starbucks case, I believe they would maintain their own enclosure, given that it's specific to them. But, customers want to come into a clean space, presenting this new building, for them to not address or take care of the dumpster area when it's right in their, really their most convenient parking field, I think that's something they would keep a close eye on. But again, I'm happy to look at landscaping or just additional items. There's not necessarily, I don't know if there's any specifics that you'd have as far as what you had in mind for, I guess, dressing it up, but I do think from a location standpoint, there's just not a great one to where, if it's like next door with Lion's Choice, or that strip mall, is that like rear of the building, there is no frontage, it's out of sight, out of mind, to where this one, we're wrapped on 3 sides, so I guess really all 4 sides. So I think we were trying to do our best to keep it further away from, the very front of the property. So that was the intent, at least, so you can understand where we were coming from while we were designing.
But I got you, but as you come down Denson's and all, it's gonna be very visible, so anything you can do to make it not exist is the best way forward, I think, because I think looking at a dumpster is gonna be very difficult, and anything you can do to dress it up and hide it, blend it, make it look pretty, make it look like a pump house that we use in the town, anything like that would be appropriate. Because to me, that's a major sight line coming into your establishment.
Understood.
Okay, gentlemen, we have a motion and a second to table this application. Anyone want to amend that motion, or you want to call for the question?
Really quick before you do that, there is your guidelines do require your 30-day timeline unless there's extenuating circumstances or there's extensive modifications necessary. So just want to clarify there is a timeline involved since it's a final submittal.
But for the Starbucks, that wouldn't apply because he's saying he wants to go back and change it. Correct?
Well, I'm hearing my option is to either be denied or to change it, I guess is, in less words. So I guess my request is that we look at the Chipotle building and, make a decision on if that can proceed while we reevaluate the options and examples in the Williamsburg area that you referenced and the rest of this corridor.
Can we split the proposal?
Yeah. Do you want to amend your motion?
Yeah, I just got to figure out which way I want to amend it. All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the Chipotle building as presented.
Is there a second?
The 3-tenant building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3-tenant building, yes.
Does he have to have any special recommendations if he's going back to look at landscaping and things of that nature?
I believe the motion would be amended to approve the 3-tenant building as presented and then to table the Starbucks single-tenant building with the recommendation of looking at additional screening mechanisms for the dumpster enclosure as well as a more historic colonial look for the building.
That is a very detailed and lovely motion that I just made.
Excellent. Is there a second?
But I'm still concerned if you change one building, is it going to be congruent with the adjacent building? I mean, that's why I would be reluctant to, I mean, you might come back with a great Starbucks building and then we're stuck against a building that we're not so happy with. And that you may have some ideas from the Starbucks building that could blend or come over to the
Bring
Chipotle.
some elements to
Or
bring them
maybe,
together.
maybe this is it. Maybe this is the best that we can do. But it seems funny to change one. We have concerns about both, and to change one and not learn from that or try to incorporate some of that. And maybe the answer is, no. But I think I I would be in favor of tabling it because I want to see it again. So I'll vote no on your motion, sorry.
I kind of feel the same. It's a collective project. It's not wasn't ever submitted or envisioned or presented as two individual projects. So to approve it as two individual projects seems a little false, and not to needle it, but you said on the Chipotle building you put your best foot forward, but you said you could improve the Starbucks building. So maybe as that best foot forward is going forward for the Starbucks, some of that will spill over and enhance the other building. I just think that it seems odd to split an application into two applications on the fly when it's a single project co-located on the same parcel.
I think there are some caveats or nuances with that as well. The lots have been divided to where the three-tenant multi-building is on its own lot, and the proposed freestanding Starbucks is on its own, as well as a part of the site development plans is that there is a phasing plan for the three-tenant building to be developed should the Starbucks lag behind. So I guess my ask is, because a lot of the feedback I got here tonight was really directed at the Starbucks building, and obviously I know everyone has their own opinions, and I heard a lot of Dr. Pope's, which was very constructive to the projects and the buildings, but it seems like the focus is heavily on the Starbucks rather than the Chipotle. So what I'm trying to do is keep this project on track, as these additional items that you're asking me to do is to increase my project budget and increase cost, which is something that could ultimately kill the project. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep things on track with the building that I feel like we have put our best foot forward on. We've had rounds of comments on that with staff. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can work together when I have closing timelines, delivery timelines, and then managing the construction cost of the aspect of it as well. So just trying to give you the full picture. I know that's not necessarily your problem per se, but I think it is important for the overall conversation.
Yeah, I think we can say reassuringly that we want these merchants in the town, right? And so that's what we're trying to do, is work with you positively and make sure that it's going to be a fit and long-lasting positive addition. And I think we're making great progress. So.
If I may, Chairwoman.
Mr. Banks, yes, sir.
Yes. The colors that you came up with for the Starbucks, that's not a standard Starbucks color arrangement, is it?
No.
Any other standalone Starbucks buildings, are they the same color as this you propose?
It's definitely not their prototypical colors right there. I believe the intent was to meet the overlay, the entrance corridor overlay.
Oh.
So
I don't. In their logo, Starbucks has green in their logo, right?
They do have some green. Green is still the element of their signage, but their prototypes, they change in areas, or they seem like they change quite frequently. I've done 25 to 50 of these, and sometimes they're the same, but I have not done a Starbucks that looks like the one I presented here. But I believe our intent was to put our best foot forward to meet the overlay requirements and trying to get away from the brand standards to meet your overlay. Yes. So this wasn't a push of Starbucks was looking for these exact colors. This was our attempt at trying to appease the overlay while also meeting their standards.
Yes.
So just to be clear, it's not a prototype of theirs.
And understood. One of the other points that come out of the ECO is it discourages straight lines, straight forms. You have a long roof here that's not broken up with anything, except for on the front side, except for the Starbucks sign. That's the only thing that breaks up the roof line. And the ECO discourages this type of design.
Understood.
Saying,
yeah.
If you want to add some elements or something, make it more colonial.
And that's what I intend to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, thank you.
What's your timeline to turn this around?
As soon as possible. I flew from Detroit here today for specific to this meeting. Our intentions are to close on this property within the next 2 weeks and to start construction as soon as DEQ gives us the approvals to do so and the Isle of Wight issues a building permit. So long as the town also has, the proper approvals in place. But our timeline is immediate. This is a project that we started, Tammy, it might have to remind me, 23. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. There's obviously been a change in economic climate with interest rates and Starbucks having some of their own changes with leadership. So this is something that I've worked effortlessly on trying to keep alive. And, I'm thankful to have a seller that's been supportive of us as well to keep it alive. So there's been a lot of behind the scenes just to keep this project afloat. And, what I'm trying to do here is get it to a closing table and for us to at least start on what we feel is the best foot forward on the multi-tenant building while we work together on what is acceptable for the freestanding Starbucks building.
Okay, gentlemen, we have an amended motion to separate the two projects and approve the Chipotle building, three-tenant building as presented, and tables the Starbucks structure. We have a
With
motion, we didn't get a
additional shielding and
second.
new-
Yes, with all those other things. We did not have a second to that motion. Hearing none, I believe that motion dies.
I'll make the second.
Should have done that before.
No, I'm interested in, the applicant, he wants to move forward, and we give him an opportunity to move forward. It is unusual to break up an application like that as presented. It is unusual. But on the other hand, the applicant has a good point trying to get his project off the ground. And we do want businesses in town.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Ms. Clay, we call for the question, please.
Mr. Bryan?
Can we clarify what we're voting on, please?
No.
Quickly, just some quick summary.
This is to approve the three-tenant building as presented and to table the single building with the suggestion of additional screening for the dumpster and a more historic and colonial look. Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Cutler?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bevan?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hillegas?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll be in touch soon with some other ideas.
Can I make a comment, not so much at this, but what we've done in the past is sometimes as an architect, they have submitted multiple renditions and asked, do you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Sometimes we can give Tammy feedback for that to say we like 3 and 7, but we hate 4. And then that way you can do quick renditions to find out what makes sense. Is that an option or not an option for him to do that so that when he comes back, he's not presenting one building that says, okay, we don't like that one either, go back to the drawing board. But in the past, people have submitted multiple elevations for us to suggest things, to give feedback on before you actually spend a lot of time and energy on redesign.
Yeah, I guess my question is, are you looking to look at those options in an informal setting or to be presented at a formal?
You email them to Tammy, Tammy emails them to us through our town web things, and then we give her comments back and she sends them to you. So it's more like, hey, you send these out, and she asks for us to reply in the next 3 to 4 days.
So you can
to give
finish your
some feedback.
application
Yeah,
before the meeting.
I welcome the feedback. So,
So that
when we
helps.
take another pass at the
That helps
Starbucks.
speed you up. So if all of a
Yeah,
sudden
so
you crank out 10 things and you want opinions on which direction are we all thinking, we're individually looking at that. We're not looking at that collectively.
Yeah, we don't want to table it and put it off a month. That's not fair. And so getting some immediate feedback, and I like Tom's idea of, I'll know it when I see it is kind of the problem, but, so if we see 3, 5, whatever, then say, yeah, that's what we're talking about. I think it's
Is
good.
that helpful? Not
Yeah,
helpful?
no, I think that is helpful. So I would love to get feedback, you know, before standing in front of you here tonight. And, you know, that way when I do come back that, you know, we have an idea or you know what to expect, in which I'm presenting. So
Like, 'cause
I would
we
really,
say we
I would
like
really
ele-
appreciate the feedback.
We like elements of 2 and 7, but, 3 looks good, but you need to combine these, and that probably gives you the feedback that you need to come up with a more comprehensive plan. At least I would think.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and thank you for working with us on that. We're excited to see what you do.
Thank you. We're really excited to join the community, so appreciate all you guys' time.
Thanks a lot.
fantastic.
I'll speak with one voice. So if you give 7, you're going to get 7 votes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the February 10th meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve as presented? This is the easy stuff, guys.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Director's report. Ms. Clary, what say you?
Yes, thank you. I will be brief. I just want to clarify that the BHAR meeting on March 17th was actually canceled as well due to a lack of business. And I do want to let you know that we have administratively approved the site plans for the cottages at Battery Park and conditionally approved Phase C and D for Mallory. We're just waiting on some additional analysis. Thank you.
Can we get a look at the site plan for the cottages? Can you send it to us?
You certainly can.
Thank you. Just curious, I was riding by there, I don't know, every day. Just wondering.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order, gentlemen? Then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.